I'm here with Annie Hergott from the Bow River Handbell Musicians Society in Calgary. And good morning.
Good morning, Jim.
So tell me how you got started in handbells.
I first discovered them in a classroom setting with a teacher friend of mine, and then went from there. I used them in all my classroom activities throughout my whole teaching.
Were you teaching music specifically, or?
A combination of things. Certainly, I was a music specialist for most of my career.
And how about now? What are you doing in the handbell world today?
Well, today it's very exciting. We created this community society, the Bow River Handbell Musicians Society, and the goal is just to bring handbells to the community and play music that's outside of the sacred realm.
Mm-hmm. Well, there are a lot of church groups out there already.
Yes.
And I know when I moved to Calgary, I looked for a community group and couldn't find one. So now it exists, thanks to you.
Yeah.
So Bow River Handbell Musicians Society, what's the name about?
Well, the Bow River runs through Calgary and Canmore, and I have connections to both of those, and love the river, and it's just a great name, we thought, for bells.
And this started when?
Our first meeting, I believe, was in the spring of 2019,
Mm-hmm.
And I gathered a group of very important people in my handbell life, and I got them together, and I suggested this dream of mine, and we all jumped on board and went from there.
So did you come from a musical family? Was anybody else in your family musically inclined?
Well, my grandma played piano, my mom played piano, my dad is a self-taught guitar, and we had music in the household my whole life. Yeah.
What about now? Anybody else in your family?
Well, my nephew right now is playing handbells with us, which is really great. He's pretty enthusiastic about bells, and he's in grade 9. And my brother also played in our Bow River bells. Yeah, my brother's playing a band. Music surrounds the family.
So in addition to Bow River, what else? Are you playing in any other groups, or are you just directing these days?
I am filling in for Kaleidoscope Bells, so I do ring a little bit in the week. But
Do you prefer ringing or directing?
I love them both. I love ringing, but unfortunately, I can't ring and I've discovered I can't ring and conduct at the same time. So because our group's just what they needed through COVID, I fell back into just conducting.
So COVID was sort of a blow to everybody.
Yeah, it was very tough.
How do you approach restarting your groups after a 2-year hiatus when everybody's forgotten everything that they learned?
I think we're pretty lucky in that most of the groups were able to come back this past year for a little bit of rehearsing, although it was pretty tough being separated. I'm looking forward to the fall when we can start ringing on a more standard table and maybe without masks. And, when we did come back after our last, we weren't ringing in January, February of this year. We started back in March, so we had 3 months, to jump into our music, our previous music. We did have to dilute a lot of the stuff we did and simplify, but as soon as possible we did our concert, and the concert brought back a lot of life. The concert rehearsal was the first time I had seen many of the ringers' faces in about a year, so it was pretty exciting because of the masks. So to see their faces and to see them respond and react to the music they were playing was pretty awesome as a conductor.
Did it go as well as you'd like?
Oh, the concert was amazing. I think everyone was so happy to be back that concentration was high. Everyone was really enthusiastic, and the audience really appreciated us, I think.
So conducting, you mentioned that. What difference is it to conduct a handbell team as opposed to, say, a singing choir or musical ensemble with other instruments?
I found it's very different, and I've had to learn this over time. I did conduct a lot of choirs, and I didn't use a baton. And what I found was through a lot of sessions that I've taken with other handbell directors, that I found that the baton, with the precision, allows the ringers to get the chords much more precise. So by landing the beats together, it just makes it work better for the ensemble. My challenge right now is to try to still keep it very precise, which you need with bells, but then to somehow lengthen phrases and add musicality, which is the challenge, I think, with bells.
What's the most important thing you've learned conducting handbells that you wish you had known from the beginning?
My background with piano, for example, when we practice, I would practice, you learn to practice, get the notes under your fingers, and then you could add more musicality after, and it just seemed a good procedure for learning. But with bells, you can't add, I just found with groups, you can't add the expression after. Like, from the moment you start, you have to know where you want the phrases to go, the volume, the speed, the retards, because the ringers, their whole bodies are involved in ringing, and if you can't change a lot of that after the fact. So if you want your group to play a certain retard a certain way with a certain volume, you have to know that from the start. So I wish I thought about that at the beginning.
So there's a lot of homework for you before the group even sees the piece.
Oh yeah, yeah. You have to know the music inside out and backwards. Yeah. And when you do, you find that if you know what what you need to ask for, the ringers they arise to the occasion.
So handbells have been around for a long time, but they really haven't been around as a performance instrument until fairly recently. And even in the years that I've been playing, I've seen the quality of handbell music just ramp up incredibly, from here's some things that we're going to play to now we're going to make music specific to this instrument. Yeah. And we've even invented new notations in the music to talk about things that we'd never done before, like singing bells and echoes and that sort of thing. Where do you see this instrument going in the next 10 or 15 years in terms of what can be done in a performance?
It's very exciting right now because I think there's a lot of room for growth, especially in the musicality side of it. Because ringers have always been able to ring their notes on time at the right place in the rhythm. But the challenge, I think, is just elevating it to the point where the group can play as a unit and create that musical magic. So I think the quality of the ringing is going to just evolve to better techniques, better ways of ringing for the sound to be better, but also that the groups themselves will be able to play at a much more delicate and beautiful place. I'm hoping eventually we'll see bells on the concert stage, so and will rival like a philharmonic orchestra, where they get to the point that the precision and beauty is all encompassing, and that they can be at that elevated level of musicianship.
So you mentioned you were in a school setting when you started out in handbells, and I know that you've done some stuff with church organizations and church-based bell performance groups. What are the differences in having a community group as opposed to a school group or a church group?
Well, one of the biggest differences is the music repertoire that we can use. We can use anything and every kind of music you can imagine. With someone like you, Jim, who arranges popular music, we can tackle some music that we've never seen arranged for bells before. The other difference, of course, is that we don't have a facility that we can use rent-free, so we do have to pay for our rent. We do have to acquire our own bells. We have to acquire all our equipment, our binders, our music, so that's quite expensive for a community group. But the ringers so far are willing to pay annual fee that helps us. And we also have great people that donate both the bells for us to use and the facility that we rent.
So you talked about being able to play literally any piece of music that you want. What piece of music would you love to see arranged for handbells that you don't think is out there yet?
Anything from the 80s. There are so many popular music pieces that are just stunning that would be fantastic for bells.
That's in the popular music realm. Are there any classical pieces that you think might work on bells?
Oh, I've forever been a fan of Scriabin, who's a Russian composer in the early 1900s, and the color and the warmth of his music and complexity is something that I'm dreaming that bells can play. So for every arranger out there, I've asked, hey, can you do us a Scriabin piece? And that may be in the works, so yeah.
So have you done any composing or arranging yourself?
I've done a lot of arranging when I was teaching. I found once I started in this community group, I haven't had a lot of time to arrange. And luckily I have somebody who's doing it for us.
Well, you're only directing, 4 groups now, so I can't imagine that you don't have scads of free time. So how do you do all that? I mean, so you're playing in one group, you're playing / conducting in Elbow River Bells, which is the smaller group that goes out and busks and plays at retirement homes and things. And you're also doing a beginner group, and you're doing an advanced group, and an intermediate. How are you doing all of this and still keeping your sanity?
It is something I love, and I just absolutely feel like it's a passion for me. I enjoy every bit of every conducting that I do with the bell groups, and I love seeing the teams evolve and learn. And I do have 2 other groups outside of those 2. I have a wonderful group called the Bells Angels, who are all retired, and they're just so fantastic to work with. So there are a lot of other possibilities for bells that we haven't even tried yet.
Is there anything else you'd like to add?
There is magic in bells, and I think they are the closest thing you can get to being on a sports team. The whole team atmosphere in bells is something that I just adore. I think people feel so good about creating something together in a group where your part matters so much. And so everyone has a role in our team, which is why we call our handbell choirs teams. We are handbell teams. And the combination of the teams and the music and the possibilities of creating musical magic is why we are doing what we're doing. It's really an amazing thing to be involved with.
I agree. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me and having a conversation this morning.
Thanks, Jim.